We met at business school at Pepperdine. And how did I first meet you?
We were in a program together called Tech, the executive committee. And that's where we first got to know each other. And it was a program, kind of a mentorship program. So we got to learn a lot about each other as friends for about a year before we started dating.
Yeah. He was a nervous wreck.
Yes, I was. So I had this thing planned. I didn't want her to know it was coming, and I knew she was catching on to it. So I recruited her cousins to pretend we were going boating together in the Newport Beach Harbor. And then I had them call last minute and pull out of it, which I knew would throw her off my scent. And
he asked me that day, he's like, do you still want to go? And I said, yeah, let's go. And the next day I asked him, I was like, what if I had said no? And he's like, I knew you wouldn't, because then we would have lost the money and you're too cheap. So that he knew me very well.
Yes. And so I took her on a 1 hour boat ride. It was just the two of us on a little boat, and had her take over the boat about 45 minutes into it. And it was right about that time the sun was setting, and I got down on one knee and forgot completely what I was going to say, except for, will you marry me?
Yeah. One of my favorite moments was right before I walked down the aisle. I realized that I had forgotten my grandmother's watch in the room, and one of the girls ran back and got it for me, and I put it on, and it's like, okay, I'm ready. And I looked at my dad and I said, thank you. And he started to tear up, so then I started to tear up, and I was like, I can't be crying when I walk down the aisle. And so I took a deep breath, but the photographer actually caught that breath, and I knew everything was going to be perfect, and I was ready. What was your favorite memory?
Well, just the ceremony itself
Yeah.
was my favorite. I don't have any specific like you do. And the dancing.
Oh, yeah.
We had a lot of fun. It was a great party, and we're still getting calls today from friends saying we just had an amazing time, and it wasn't just a wedding, it was a party, a celebration.
Yeah, it was. We're actually wine club members of Orange Coast Winery that Doug and Debbie own, and so we went to go tell the other owner, Gus, that we were engaged, and then we met Debbie, and they were telling us about their winery, and so we decided to come out and look at it. I mean, that was a dream. We didn't think that we'd be able to have a wedding at a winery,
and we didn't even want to make the drive. We're so glad we did, because
we almost canceled our appointment.
We saw 8 places in 2 days,
Yeah.
and this was the last one, and we almost turned around and said, forget it, it's not going to be that great.
Yeah.
And we're so happy we kept the appointment.
It was just so easy. Everything about the planning process was it was taken care of. We weren't very particular. And we kept on asking Brittany, like, do we need to be more specific? Do we need to demand certain things? But we wanted to have a celebration, and the entire process was just so easy and relaxed, and we just got that vibe that we could have that relaxing wedding day.
And another thing is, a lot of other venues seem to really nickel and dime us. This for cake cutting, this for certain color napkins, this for other color napkins. We just wanted someone to say, this is what your wedding is going to cost.
We didn't want to be surprised at the end of our wedding of an extra bar bill or that kind of thing.
And I remember we must have annoyed Brittany because we asked her probably 100 times, is that extra?
Is that extra?
Is that extra? The answer was always no. But yeah, so I really like that.
Well, it downpoured on our wedding day. It doesn't rain very often in Temecula, but it poured that entire day. And so we moved the ceremony into the barrel room instead. And the staff immediately grabbed jars that were just like mine and put candles in it. And it wasn't the ceremony that we were expecting to have, but I'm so glad that it did downpour and we had to do it in there, because it was absolutely the most romantic room, I think, in the world.
So, as Morgan said, it was pouring, and neither of us were worried. We were pretty laid back about our whole wedding, and we knew that we had the contingency plan possibility. Brittany had said we could move the ceremony into the barrel room because of the size of our wedding. We barely made the cut, and and afterwards we were actually happy that it rained that day, because you see a lot of pictures of couples being married outside, but you see very few in a room as beautiful as that with the tea lights and everything. So it was a blessing in disguise.
I've never seen another room like that. So during the entire, before the ceremony, after the ceremony, and then the reception, the entire team here at Wiens was just checking in with me, checking in with him. Do you need anything? Do you want anything? It felt like everything was centered around us and making sure that we were having the best day ever. And it was seamless. I mean, I just remember our waiter coming up and saying, as soon as you sit down, then we'll serve the food. We're waiting on you. And so I was like, oh no, serve the food and then we'll sit down. We have too many people to talk to. And they were like, okay, that sounds good. And Brittany coming up during the entire reception, asking us if we wanted something to drink, any water, champagne. I loved my day. I loved our day.
Yeah, it was just, everything was taken care of. Any requests that we had, there was some miscommunication with us and some of the other vendors, and the Wiens representatives always took care of everything.
Yeah, it was a great day. So our vendors were amazing. I don't regret any of them. They were all awesome. Michael Coy was our photographer. Him and his wife came, worked together. They were both just so easy to work with, really captured all the dancing and the celebration and all these various moments. They were amazing. And then
the cupcakes, they were incredible. Le Crumb, the local bakery we found.
Last minute. Like 2 weeks before our wedding.
Yeah, our previous vendor shut down, closed down.
Without us knowing. And it was a really great find. Yeah, and we wanted to have the strawberry cupcakes, and she was saying how the frosting just wasn't turning out quite right. But it's all natural ingredients. So she's like, I'm gonna work on it, and hopefully I'll be able to get the strawberry frosting just perfect. And she did, and my family still talks about our cupcakes. Mm-hmm. They were amazing. And
she gave us, but she let us use the stand. During the wedding. Which
once
was really
again,
nice.
Just didn't nickel and dime. It was just making it easy for us. And then the guitarist.
Tony Lasley, found him on gigmasters.com. He was a flamenco Spanish guitarist. We wanted something a little bit unique for our special days, and again, it was just a really good find. He was very easy to work with, very accommodating. Our wedding was pushed back about a half hour because of rain. He didn't charge any extra. He just asked where to set up and took care of everything.
Yeah, it was perfect.
I mean, for me, there wasn't like a moment. It was just the dancing. I was just happy to look around at all the times and seeing everyone having such a great time.
Yeah.
That was just pleasant, because both of us, we wanted people that came to our wedding to have a good time, and we were happy everything was going very well and smoothly. But yeah, I can't remember of any one moment.
Well, I had a dance off with my cousin.
Oh yeah.
And it's so great because in the pictures, we're having a dance off and he's dancing up next to me, and his friends are in the background, and I don't think they realized like who he was, that he was a family member. So his friends are just looking like, who is this guy? And my dad is in the background just dying laughing. And so we complete our dance off, and my dad comes up to me and he's crying, he's laughing so hard, and he's like, please tell me that was captured on film. And I said, well, my photographer's right over there, so I'm pretty sure we got some of it. And all I can remember is my dad just saying, they're first cousins, like explaining to our guests and stuff who he is.
One of my friends comes up to me and he's like, Suresh, there's some guy freaking your wife.
So, yeah.
And I was like, oh, him? Okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
He's all right.
But yeah, and then we love to dance, and so there were a few songs later on in our reception that, you know, I guess not all eyes were on us, and we were just able to go out on the dance floor and just dance, and it was just the two of us. Nobody else was there. It felt like. So yeah, it was our own little special moments. So I guess it was about a month before the wedding that I decided to change our menu because I wanted better meat. I'm from Texas. My family loves the red meat. And so I called Brittany and I asked her recommendation. And so we changed the menu, and oh my gosh, the food, he didn't care about the food. He didn't think that the food is important at a wedding, but I didn't want to have a bad meal on my wedding day. And so our food was so good, and they were so accommodating. And I remember I left the reception for a little bit, and I ran into the chef outside, and I just hugged him. Like, I just gave him this huge hug, and I just said, thank you so much. He was just amazing. The food was so good.
Butternut squash ravioli.
Oh, yeah.
That's another one that everyone talks about all the time.
My sister had just found out that she was pregnant, and she wasn't really interested in meat or fish. And I said, well, the butternut squash ravioli is so good. And she's like, can I just get a plate of just that? And so I asked Brittany, and Brittany was like, yeah, no problem. And so my sister licked her plate clean. Like, they were so good.
Yeah.
And
then the wines. Every wine that we chose was great, but what we really noticed was this weekend we went around to the other wineries. We hadn't done that before. So we were wondering, you know, we hadn't seen the other wineries. Did we make the right choice? And we just kind of were playing our own little game. And as we went from one to the next, not only do the wines stand out here, but also just the venues themselves.
Yeah.
We were looking around saying, wow, if we got married here, our wedding would have been ruined, because there was no contingency plan. There was no barrel room, anything like that. So
we would have had to pay like thousands of dollars for a tent to be set up that day or something like that.
Yeah, and so we just kept going from winery to winery to winery all weekend, and every time we did, we were saying, wow, we're so glad we made the choice. Even though we hadn't looked at anything else, it ended up working out really well.
We love red wines, and I have to admit, Wiens red wines, they just, oh gosh, I still remember specific ones that just have so many layers of flavors. And now I'm going to sound like a wine snob, but they're just so good. And the champagne, his mom just actually ordered a couple bottles of the champagne because she loved it so much. So she just paid to have it shipped to her, just to relive a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, I don't even like champagne, and that was really good champagne.
It's really good. So. Yeah.